Bing bong bing, bing bong bing bong, bing bong bing, bing bong bing bong. Singing this song all about Skyping. Skype your friends, call them every day. Skype around, Skyping everyone. Skype, yeah. Hey, you missed it. I had a little song going with the Skype. The little thing was going, and it was. I made a song about Skyping.
Cool.
It was great. You missed it.
We are Legion.
We are all.
We are one.
We are
Watching.
Every item does not appear in our records. It does not exist.
For Illuminati.
the Holocron.
Welcome to the Holocron, a Hoard Illuminati podcast. It's Adam and Gregg here. Talk about one of the most divisive variants of Series 3, Hyperspace. Gregg is drinking some brown liquor. How you doing, Gregg?
It's actually white liquor. It's gin,
Oh,
and so there's no color to it at all. But then I added some brown shit to it, just to fool you, just to keep you guessing and stuff. I'm doing fine. I didn't realize you were so divisive. Should we do this, Adam? I mean, I love peace. I'm a man of peace. People know this about me.
you know, I did forget your switch to pacifism, so...
I am. I'm very pacifistic.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, between drinks, I have a pacifier.
Yeah. Fuck it, we're doing it live. All right, so let's talk about Hyperspace.
Okay. Let's
All
talk
right.
about those crazy... Whew. Wow. Yeah. They really hit their stride with those.
Yeah, so this is in the middle of Series 3 in 2016. You're looking at about the beginning of May 2016. These hit. The app had been through the ringer with the silver variants, and we were getting hit with all sorts of stuff. I believe we already been through the cloth and the green. What was it? The green gradients and the purple gradients.
Yeah,
and
it was like purple
things.
pink and pink teal or some. Man, I'll tell you what. They really realized that they could fuck people that were character collectors when they hit Series 3. That was like the heyday of too many fucking variants. So many goddamn variants.
Yeah, and what they did is, one of the things that the Twitter community at the time was were saying, okay, they're finished with silvers. What the hell can be next? And one of the things I did is I tweeted out, I said, Hyperspace variants. And a week later, they had them in the app.
Top said, hold my beer. Well, I mean, the design of that base lent itself to so many possible variants because it had a huge amount of space. The entire background of every character card was basically room for you name it. And that's why we ended up with so many crazy variants.
Yeah, it was an empty palette for every single thing imaginable, and we got just about that. And after I tweeted that out, I'm like, haha, Tops, you owe me a variant for every one of these if you use this. A week later, it showed up, nothing. But
you did not get it.
For the longest time, I'm like, haha, that was my idea. And I'm looking back, doing some research on this, as we do for the Holocron, and I'm looking through, and I'm like, holy shit, other people had made the suggestion. I wasn't the only loner doing this. There are people suggesting this as far back as February. And in fact, the guy on Twitter, Vishan42, he was the one that did all those cool custom cards back in the day.
Yeah.
He actually mocked this up in February of 2016, and it looked amazing. It used actual hyperspace image from the movie.
Right.
The Falcon going to hyperspace with the X-Wing or whatever ship you're looking at the time. And what we got from Topps was not quite that.
No. Well, they said, how can we make this suck more?
Yeah, well, we didn't get this hyperspace scene that everyone was kind of expecting when they saw that, tweet or the transmission go up, that they were thinking like jump to hyperspace like wide vision. What we actually got was the background to Mo Money Mo Problems from Puff Daddy and Notorious B.I.G. where they're dancing in the tunnel.
Shit, that's a deep cut, dog.
It is.
That's a deep cut.
That one might have made it right over your head. But those who are listening and know that, go look it up. just type in Mo Money, Mo Problems, and the background is like Puff Daddy and Mace with the dollar sign dancing in the background to this thing that looks like the Hyperspace background of the cards. These are not Hyperspace variants. These are Mo Money, Mo Problems variants.
Wow, that's a deep cut. I think we're doing this whole show just so you could make that connection, and I salute you.
Thank you.
I salute you for that. Well played.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. It's a Hoard Illuminati podcast.
Yeah.
We are Legion.
We are all.
We are one.
We are.
Watching.
Adam connects the dots.
Tune in next time.
I'll put the theme right in there. So people think it's really over.
You better do that.
I'm
Mark
making
this
a
time.
note.
Mark it.
I'm making a note right now. Oh, God. Okay. $4, 4 minutes and 51 seconds in. Outro.
So, with the Hyperspace, where were these were popular is that they were done for free in Series 3. You could meld 5 of any base card of that color and get that character's Hyperspace variant. 5 white, R2-D2s gives you a white R2-D2 Hyperspace. 5 blue rays gives you a blue ray Hyperspace. And this worked for white, blue, green, orange, and red. And these were pretty popular at first. People jumped on the bandwagon, tried to do all the melds as fast as they could. They were around for a while, but where they started to get divisive is they started using these as part of Series 3 gold melds. I don't know if you remember doing all these gold melds.
Yep.
But it went from going from like 100 white regular base to all sorts of combinations of base cards. And then just to really screw with this and switch it up, all of a sudden, instead of like 300 white base, it became something like 75 white Hyperspace.
Well, I think the standard started out with those golds to be 100 because I can remember the prospectors. We had the people that we called prospectors who had 101 of every character. They were literally hoarding to 101 of every single character for the gold melts when those came up. And then they completely fucked their game.
And you still see dipshits in the feed hoarding to 101. And you're like, what the fuck is that even about now? Why is this number still...
It's tradition.
Tradition that lasted like 2 weeks.
Yes.
But anyways...
The McCain clan has always hoarded to 101. You're not going to change us, whippersnapper.
So, where those golds happened, I remember, I think it was like Dengar I did the gold for, and I got enough whites, and then you had to do like 75 melds to get the Hyperspace, so you could then meld those 75 Hyperspace to a gold. And that's where it became a really point of contention in the community that why do I have to meld all these things to meld a thing, which we've seen numerous times over again in between then. But that was like the first time it was like people were like, okay, melded, and they're like, what? I have 300 of these cards already. Why can't I hit the button once? You're gonna make me do this 75 times and then do it one more time to get the card.
You gotta work for it, baby.
Yeah.
Well, they solved that. They solved all that later.
Yeah. Another issue with the Hyperspace that was also divisive was you had some character collectors, if you remember in Series 3, that were the award cards for the base.
Right.
So if you were a Darth Vader, I think Darth Vader was the red award. And Greedo, I think, was the green award. And if you were old Obi-Wan collector, he was the white award. Well, you can't meld 5 awards that you don't have. They were untradeable.
Right. Yeah, they were not tradable.
Yeah.
That was the best part. It was like, here's an impossible meld. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's like record scratch. That was probably in that song you mentioned, too, a record scratch at one point or another.
For sure.
So, I connected those dots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they eventually put out, I believe, bundles later on.
That's how they solved it. They're just like, just give us money.
Yep.
Now that you're committed to building a complete set of all these bases, that's when they got to the EX ones. That's when they really put the screws to everybody, because the EXs had just pretty new. They were kind of almost like an expansion base that like we see in the sports apps, where halfway through the season these guys have been traded and this guy's the starting quarterback's been injured and this guy's taken over, and they release an expansion or an update version like they just recently did in Huddle. So they did that with this as well, and they had a slightly different border with kind of a metallic instead of a black nameplate at the bottom, and those were fairly recent. So then people were already kind of pot committed. We've talked about this before, about getting pot committed and being into going all the way with something, and people were already ready to go all the way with this, and then they dropped bundle exclusives on those, where you're basically taking a chance. You bought in for chances on those hyperspaces, and some of them are insanely rare, just ridiculously rare.
Yeah, so they released the white ones at first, and where people were accustomed to doing 5 white base cards to get the white hyperspace, all of a sudden they threw these into bundles, 5 for $1. And people are like, wait a second, I could do this on a day's worth of free coins, just white base getting bullshit, and just meld these just as a thing to do, to become a profit center for Topps to do these other, hyperspace. And I believe the blues were $2.99, the reds were $4.99. I couldn't find the exact price of the greens. I think they were $6 or $7.99, and then the oranges were $10 for 5. Now, those expansions, those had super low counts, as you mentioned, Greg.
Yeah, some of them really insanely low.
The oranges go from 1 count to 14 count out there. The 1 count being a Lats Ratsy, and then the 14 count being the Phantom Menace Celebration Padme, where she's got the big, white wings behind her thing.
Yeah, the clone Padme, I call it.
Yeah, where she got the dots on the
She's a juggalo. She's a juggalo. She's down with the clown. That one.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how magnets work.
The greens went from 8 count, which was a Kylo, to 27 count. The reds went from 150 to 235. The blues from 230 to 309. And then the whites, which showed up in a few other places, like in that to the Q or to the whatever, were for the Rogue One set. Those were 1541 to 1767. So those were much more plentiful along the way because people were much more willing to drop $1 instead of $10.
Right. Yeah. They were a big gamble, and people, it's kind of a baller thing. And then you always had that chance of getting some really shit character like Lats Ratsy. It's like it's good that there's only a 1 count on that, because I don't know that anybody actually collects that character. But if they did,
there is. I trade with that person all the time.
Really? Do they have it? Are they the ones?
Yeah, they do.
Okay,
they do.
Good for
they
them.
have it. And it's crazy that something could be that low, but none of the expansions are sold out either. So someone new come in and they'll be like, I guess, I don't know. They're not sold out. I'll just offer dumb shit for it.
Well, it depends on what tier they're in,
Yeah.
Because that's how everybody trades now.
Yeah. Tier for tier.
Tier for tier.
So, and those awards for the Series 3, they all hovered around 300 to 325 count for the regular Series 3, not the expansion. The lowest one, ironically enough, is the white base version of the award. The oranges are the highest count of those, which was Maz and Akbar. But the FN 2187 is 20 counts less. It's a 312 for the Finn.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because nobody pursued those. They didn't think that those would be the one to have.
Yeah, so looking through some of the... Looking through some of the old comments on here, I found one that I just thought perfectly encapsulated the whole change to expansion from the free mechanic to the bundle mechanic. It was actually from our friend A.W. Biggs, and he said, Topps is overwhelmingly arrogant to charge for these. I'm like, that's our Biggs.
Yeah.
And there was not without errors along the way, too, with these. There's some real outliers here. There's a Stormtrooper TFA one that apparently sat as a 1-to-1 meld for a long time. So that blue Stormtrooper one is a lot higher count. And
I would imagine a lot. At some point, people just go, it's not even worth melding for.
No. And oddly enough, one of the oddest ones that I found doing some research on this is the Ilko Munica, like a weird background TFA character.
The terrified alien who was about to get killed by stormtroopers.
So the green on that sits at 471. So this one must have had an error along that too, because by comparison, Rey sits at 300. So,
yeah, in popularity. Well, I mean, at that time, Ilko Munico was just incredibly popular, much more so than Rey. I can remember,
that's true.
All in the feed everyone's, like trading Rey, looking for Ilko. It was a thing.
All the kids were just like, man, I got to get my Ilko on.
Oh yeah, I mean, you went to the movie and you got the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
there must have been something
really
fucked up.
there.
Something was fucked up there. It must have been just a super easy meld.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and one of the things that we like to do on this show is, what was it cool? And I think to some extent, when it started, yeah, I think this was a cool variant. Until they started charging for it. At that point, it became just another what felt like money grab at the time of 2016 when we were just varianted to death, especially with Series 3, especially with Series 3 expansion, when we got all those cloths, we got all the gradients.
S3 has the distinction of having, multiple one counts. You had the Mustafar, and then you also had the die cuts. So there was 2 one counts on those. So if you're chasing the rainbow, I mean, let us just punch you in the balls. To try to finish a rainbow in those. It was ridiculous. They didn't do that in all of them. I think it was the expansion that had the die cuts.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it wasn't the exact same card, but there was certainly duplicates of the character. I have the expansion rainbow for both Count Dooku expansions, the Clone Wars characters.
Humble brag.
But I do not have it for the Series 3, because that Mustafar is tough to get.
Lost to the mists of time. Yeah, that's my last need in S3 for my fat clone idiot is the Mustafar, and luckily there's no die cut for me to try to run down too. Other than that, it's rainbow complete, and I'm hammering an offer at half thigh every day. I'm refreshing it twice a day to keep that god thing running because the new movie's coming. Mandalorian's about to come out. Maybe pray to the gods of Star Wars that this guy will actually go, hey, I think I'll look in on my old Star Wars account I haven't looked at in 2 years. Because he hasn't gotten anything since they changed those intro cards. Remember with the Legends?
Yeah.
He has those Legends. That's the last time he checked in was when they had those.
Well, that's actually pretty recent. If you think about someone being gone forever.
In the last year or so, yeah. So I'm hoping it'll come to mind and he'll look at the insane truckload I backed up to his door and will actually accept it and finish my rainbow, please.
Either that or reinstall the app, reminded how he's still paying off credit card bills maybe for those.
I don't know. It's one of those before you just wonder how can somebody spend that much, have that much, and then just shut it down and walk away and not do something with that.
Yeah, I know. And
sickening.
So, next question: should they do it again? Should they have some?
Well,
let's not even look at the design. Let's look at the mechanics.
I want to back up to your point saying, was it cool? Was it cool until they started charging? It was kind of a kick in the balls that they started charging on things. But the result of that is that there is a huge amount of really low count variants kind of just out there in the wilds. And there are people that have those that forgot what they paid for them or forgot what they ever even cared about them. And you can get some pretty low count old variants from cross trade accounts and things like that. So it's not all bad. There's some old treasures out there waiting to get dug up for people. If you're into a character off the beaten track a little bit, some of those things are crazy low, and it might be worth your while to take a look around and see if you couldn't run some of those down. I like treasure hunts like that. So it's not all bad to have, those old low counts sitting out there. Now that I know the Lots Rotzi's out of reach, I quit.
Well,
leading app.
you know, you already knew because you knew where it was already. So I mean, it was unobtainable to you, Greg. Unobtainable.
It's true.
So should they do it again? When we see Series 7, we're not calling it 2020. Fuck that. Series 7. When we see Series 7, should Topps do a meld variant like this again?
Well, I think it would be nice if they went back to the meld mechanic for base variants. If they stay consistent with it and make it a fun thing, I think it's the kind of activity that the community enjoys. There was always a lot of trading and swapping around on the nights because they usually drop in lots, 3 and 5 and things like that. And when people's guy was up, people were, hey, your guy's up and stuff like that, and a lot of trading around and kind of a busy feed. It's a no cost kind of thing for people to do that sparks trading. So absolutely, I think they should go back to that in some form. Would it be Hyperspace or something else? Who can say? But I definitely think that they've kind of walked away from that mechanic as something for people to do and be involved with in the app. And when things are so fucking boring like they are right now, I'd kill to, have a feed where people were just trading base around to do melds. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be. And we've seen them employ this in the last few months in Slam. They've been doing a weekly meld.
Those
where
cosmics.
It's three cards. Yeah, the cosmics. They kind of
I've been
a
melding
cool
all
spectrum
those.
rainbow effect. Yeah.
Sure.
And those are a lot of fun, even though they're only doing 3 at a time. So no one's really, looking for that many scarce, base cards or anything to do it. But it's still fun to get those and kind of build that set.
Just turn your crap base into something lower count and interesting.
Yeah.
And hey, try to guess what the highest count cosmic base is so far.
One? No, I don't know. I don't know
the highest count. The highest count wrestler is. You don't know who it is?
It would have to be Alexa Bliss.
You win! Okay, you win.
Oh, yay.
You win an Alexa Bliss card.
I get to come back next week.
Yes, you do. We'll have you back, Adam. Thank you. And yeah.
And one of the things too with that mechanic though is those people that come in for their daily coins, and they leave, or they only do trading for the one marathon they're collecting right now. It gives them a chance to once again engage with community, which is a big part of the app that often is just neglected. The community aspect of the app is something that should never be discounted amongst the app developers.
Well, yeah, it's part of the user experience, and when a community's good, like we talk about tarot cards all the time. One of the reasons that's such an enjoyable app is the community there is so great and fun and nice, and that's what makes that app amazing. Aside from the content stuff, which I have very little connection to most of the time, that can be a huge influence on people's decisions of whether to be in this, to do anything with this, and invest in it as well.
Yeah, completely agree. So the consensus is bring it back.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not in bundles.
Not in bundles. No.
No, they got, I'm sure they've got their money bags all at the waiting for all the Force of, not the Rise of the Skywalker fella that's coming.
Yeah, that Ilko Munico is going to be huge in this movie.
Yeah, they're going to get, he's coming back, baby. He's coming back.
He's going to be huge.
He is the new Skywalker. That's a spoiler for you folks. We said we'd be spoiler free, but here's a little taste.
Yeah.
Ilko Munico is back. Now I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he was at the center of the stormtroopers that were all firing on the villagers.
Castle
He was one of those unfortunate ones that was getting roasted.
He lost his fight alongside Lor Santeca, right?
Yeah, well, Lor Santeca got it first, and then they just opened up on everyone else. It's like, oh shit, okay.
The Force Ghost of Ilko Munico is going to turn out to be Palpatine.
Okay. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but okay.
You heard it here first.
No. His son, Bilko.
Bilko
Munico is going to be in this one seeking revenge against Kylo Ren. And then he gets cut down instantly, too.
Yeah. Poor old Bilko.
Sergeant Bilko Munico.
We've completely lost it. So, let's wrap it up here. Greg, a lot of fun talking about hyperspace, and I think we're back next week with one of your choices. So, I hope you
at
pick
some
something
point
good.
in the future, we should talk about laser burst too, because laser burst had a similar fate and a lot of crazy variants and stuff, and that's kind of a cool one. And some of those cards are hilarious. Where it looks like it's like a halo around their head, so it looks like the holy relic of Star Wars and stuff. Some of those are really funny. There's a ton of really bizarro variants, and then the ins and outs of the gold melds in those and series. We could talk for a year about Series 3 base variants, because there's so goddamn many of them and so many different variants, and some of them were just ridiculous.
I think it was the Jabba the Hutt in all those variants that was so large within that card you couldn't tell what the background was on it.
It just covered
is
everything.
Is it a laser burst? Is it a hyperspace? It's an amorphous blob. So next time we'll be back with one of Greg's choices. Be sure to follow us on Hoardcast on Twitter, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and the other places that you catch your podcasts. Be sure to send us some suggestions or be part of the fun. Hoardcast@gmail.com, and give us a call, 904-628-1138. And Greg, it was always a pleasure doing these episodes with you. I have a great time doing them.
Me too. I don't know anything about half the shit, but it's fun to just make dumb jokes. That's my job. That's my job.
With that, catch you next time on the Holocron.
Arrivederci!
We are Legion.
We are all.
We are one.
We are.
Watching.
An